Welcome everybody to the channel. I've got a treat for you today. I was fortunate enough to have a viewer and subscriber willing to spend some time with me and go over some of the pain points and struggles that the working class, middle class is feeling and facing today in the job market. Some real boots on the ground intel from folks out there actually on the front lines trying to make it day to day. He's going to share some really valuable information. I believe that a lot is going to resonate with a lot of you. And honestly, I would appreciate you guys to take the time to watch this video till the end. And please engage in the comments. I really want to know how your experiences compare to his. And also, I want to put out the opportunity for anyone else who's interested. Just go ahead and shoot me an email, and let's try to set up a time if you guys want to have an opportunity to share your story and have your voice be heard as far as what you're experiencing in the job market, what you're experiencing as far as income, and possibly some of the tactics that businesses and companies are using against you to keep a stronghold on you, ultimately keep you down, and further suffer the negative economic impacts of inflation. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. His name is Matt, and he's got a lot to say. He's got a lot of experience in business as far as actually running his own business. He's an entrepreneur. He's got some managerial experience across different fields, different industries, different companies in his area. And I think he's got a lot of important and very valuable things that people really need to hear. I mean, to me, I think he's speaking the truth, and that's what I want to bring you guys. I want to bring you guys the truth. So here's the interview. Check it out. Let me know what you think. But real quick, let's talk. You sent a lengthy email, so
Yeah.
we got a lot to cover here. But if you don't mind, can you just start off with like a brief introduction to let everybody know who you are?
Basically, I'm in retail management. I have been for a very long time. I know that some people will see, they'll say, well, you're younger and whatnot. Well, I'm 37, so I'm not exactly all that young. Um, I've had basically family businesses. And then, of course, I've done corporate retail. So I've got a pretty good study as to how logistics work, business in general. It's always been one of my favorite topics. Um, I'm always constantly reading about it, whether it be dead car companies from the past and trying to figure out, like, hey, what went wrong and basically what not to do. So basically, I'm just a student of the topic as well as I do practice it for a living.
Okay. And you said 37. At what age would you say you got into it?
Um, well, I guess adult life, about 18. What happened there was I was a mechanic, and then I decided to do work on the side, and basically became a mobile mechanic. And so I made a couple of bucks doing that. I did that for a while. I didn't like quit a job to go do it full time, and I ultimately ended up deciding not to continue to do that. Not necessarily because that didn't make any money, but because you could end up in some pretty hairy places working on cars.
Oh, you mean like on the side of the road and things like that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. We would, in Atlanta, we would see the State Farm hero trucks, and they'd have flashing lights and yellow vests on and cones out. But still, I mean, that is kind of sketch.
yeah.
So you have experience also, and this is from the email you sent. You have experience as a small business owner, entrepreneur,
hmm Yeah.
and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, well, let's see. I must have been still in junior high. I think junior high. Well, definitely high school. When my dad had started up a greenhouse, and he kind of did it by accident. Basically, he just got tired of paying high prices for vegetable plants. And oh God, that was well over 20 years ago. And I mean, the prices back then weren't as high as they are now, but still, he didn't want to pay those, and of course, he knew how to grow them. So he just started with a little greenhouse, and then he ended up selling the excess, sold out, so he expanded it and kept going. Uh, I served some customers there off and on, but it didn't really kind of click for me in terms of being interested in plants per se
Okay.
until some years later. But I've been a part of it, I would say, for about 20 years. And then I ended up basically as pretty much co-owner and manager. I also handled marketing locally. Of course, I didn't pay one dime for advertisement. I did use social media. So
Smart.
that was a lot of fun. And of course, I was very interactive with the customers. 3 a.m. Yeah, I was a guy. People would message me, "Hey, I got this problem," oh, okay, and try and help figure it out for them. So I mean, yeah, it was very engaging. The second business that we ended up opening was a bait shop. Um, January of, or no, it was late December of '07. Yeah, or was it? No, it was '08 headed into '09. I'm sorry. At any rate, um, basically, I found out the local bait shop that has long been established was going out of business. Out of curiosity, I asked them, well, hey, how much do you want for everything here? They said $1,000. I said, really? Okay. Dad and I talked it over. We went down, we bought everything up. We went across town, we rented a building, we set up shop. We got it open in the spring of '09. Business was decent. We actually ended up in the paper for that, so that was a nice boost to business. But that quickly leveled off, and basically the economy was just terrible at the time, and it just it never did half as well as the greenhouse, and so we ended up closing it up in August of 2010. But we kept the greenhouse going. It didn't close until July of 2018.
What pushed you guys to close the greenhouse?
Okay, well, okay, so that was located on land that my grandmother had owned. And we had a deal going to buy the land. Unfortunately, she passed away 5 days before the papers could be signed.
Oh boy.
So it got thrown into probate. The rest, the whole family arrangement, whatever. But yeah, so it was, well, it is what it is. But on one hand, maybe it was not a bad idea to get away from there, simply because relatives that lived in the area, and then of course some of their friends and things. It just kind of ruined a lot of stuff.
Some freebies.
Well, there was some of that, but at the end of the day, they just the rumor mill.
You gotta love that.
Yeah, so
So
it
now,
is what it is. But someday we're hoping to open back up. But these crazy land prices, I'm telling you.
no, well, it is definitely a growing need, especially locally homegrown. But much like the opportunity that you found yourself with the bait shop, you may find yourself in a similar situation in the next 12 to 24 months, depending on the direction that our economy goes and some of the businesses that decide that they may want to step back.
Yeah. Well, currently I'm working in corporate retail, and I basically had to take a dive on a job. What happened was is I had a general manager's position with another company earlier this year, but it was too far away to make the commute. The hours were extremely long. And by the time you averaged out the base pay across about at least 70 hours a week, it was like basically making 11.33 an hour. So I
Did,
tried to find something closer to home. I did, but I ran into a soap opera with that company. There was, oh, the management was always arguing with each other, as in district was pitting people against store managers. Managers were going over district's head. And I mean, it was just a big war. Um, but I ultimately ended up landing in, let's say, an office supply store, and I really make nothing now.
So to back it up to the first the one with the heavy commute. You mentioned up to an hour and a half commute.
Well, the hours were very long, and the commute itself was about, what was that? Close to an hour,
Is that one way or
either
round
direction.
trip? Oh wow! So you could be spending
Yeah,
2 hours a day just driving.
yeah.
And
So it's like basically I mean, sometimes you'd be forced to work a little later or even come in a little earlier, but standardly it was 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. was the shift. So I had to be on the road by 7 o'clock.
yeah, because try to get there at 11. Theoretically, you leave at 9:30. You're going to sit in traffic, so there's no way you could really make that. So yeah, 7 makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I mean, it was just insane, especially to get ready to get out the door by 7. I had to be up by quarter to 6 at least.
And
And
when you first took on or approached this position, did they give you any indication that you were going to be working so many hours for the pay, the salary that they were, the compensation package that they were delivering?
well, yes and no. I know that's a funny answer, but basically, so what the place sold was mulch. So their season really doesn't get totally kicked off until somewhere in April. So what happens is the company, and this company, oh boy, are they managed really, really bad. At any rate, uh, they don't have a staff at the store for you. You have to hire the staff. However, you're only really authorized to hire the staff or start hiring staff about mid March onward. And even then, you don't really work anybody all that much until it picks up. So about April's when you're going to have a staff. And even then, you can't really get people because what they wanted to pay the equivalent of an assistant manager, which was called a yard lead, was $13.50 an hour to throw mulch all day.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they kind of wondered why they couldn't get anybody. It was pretty bad. I mean, all of us store managers were begging them, "Come on, up the wage. Come on, seriously."
What do you think it would have
And
taken
they
to
would
get?
do it.
What do you think it would have taken to get somebody to really be interested in that?
Well, to really get somebody to, well, to keep them interested. Um, Especially in that area, which of course it's towards Columbus, Ohio. So the cost of living is a lot higher in that direction. I mean, there was like apartments down the street, and one of the guys, actually the last guy I had hired before I left, he was talking about how him and his wife were paying $1,000 a month, and then there was, I don't know, plus other fees and stuff. So by the time he got done paying all of his obligations,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was looking at least, what, $1,200, $1,300.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I would say, and that's very hard work. I mean, throwing the 40 to 80 pound bags of mulch all day.
Yeah. So,
Um,
what do you think?
I don't know.
18,
I mean,
20?
well, I mean, I could see 18, but I mean, you know, I don't know, maybe 16.50 for part time, maybe 18 for full time.
So maybe 16.50 part time, 18 full time, but also you'd have to get
Yeah.
them some hours so that they can actually earn a
Oh
decent
yeah.
paycheck.
Well, and by part time I mean the old traditional part time like you'd get in the 80s or 90s,
Uh huh.
36 hours, something like that. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
they wanted 32, I'd work with them, but you know, a lot of places anymore you're lucky to get 13 to 20 hours. That's the norm.
Whew.
And places that pretend to offer a bigger uh, amount of hours for especially part-time status or even temporary status, um, you're looking at maxing out at about 25 hours.
That's tough. That's tough. So now the office supplies.
Well, basically, my job consists of 5 jobs because you can be manager on duty at any given time. And so you've got to deal with, of course, handling the money, things like that, taking care of the back office amount of that business. And then, of course, you're in charge of register, so you have to know not only how to run the register and things, but of course do manager override, stuff like that. So you got that going, plus you pretty much have to play salesman, and you've got to know all of the company stuff that they're pushing, whatever plan, service plan, all this business. And then on top of that, my actual job of what I'm actually supposed to be managing most of the time, or so they say, is inventory. So it's merchandise supervisor, but it's really an assistant manager. It's how they're doing things. They're kind of strange.
Are they
And I
putting
also,
are they putting a lot of
mhm.
work? Are they putting a lot of workload on your coworkers as well? Are they all
Oh yeah,
being
yeah, yeah. Basically, that's the thing. Is I mean, they're all about piling it on. And here's the deal: this company hires in clerks, which they don't just run register. They're obligated to go out and serve customers too. And of course, the motto is sell, sell, sell. And, sell the plan, get them to download the app, do all this business. Um, they start them out at $9.75.
wow?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I get where a lot of people, come from on that, or, how they feel about that. Um,
Is there
but
any commission? Is there opportunity to
no,
earn commission?
no.
And the employees that fill these roles, are they typically younger, like still in high school or anything, or
There are a few of them that are out of high school. Um, there was a couple that were students of high school, and I think a couple that were starting back in college. So some of them have left, some of them have cut hours.
the ones that are still there? What is their
Mm-hmm.
feeling? What is their opinion? Obviously, it's probably not a good one, but do they feel like they're stuck? Do they have plans on doing anything different?
Well, they, I don't know. I mean, well, they have a bit of an opinion, but I think what most of their viewpoint is at this point is, well, I'm just going to do this until, maybe I get something better, or maybe just get through school or something. They're not, they agree that the pay is terrible. And of course, there's, hour caps all over the place. Um,
In your opinion, do you see?
I'm not sure why they're there.
In your opinion, do you have any thoughts of there being something better anytime soon?
Um, no, if I'm honest, no. The reason being is because even before the mulch store, I tried to make a transition from a bad company, another terrible individual place. They happen to own and run a lot of gas stations in my state and some of the neighboring states. They're a private company, but they run convenience stores and franchises of a known brand. And I was an assistant manager for them. In fact, I was a traveling manager. I was supposed to be getting paid mileage. The person that they left it up to fill that out and send it all in never did. And I kept getting on him about it. I called district. Finally, I ended up having a problem one morning with the car, and I'm supposed to go 40 miles one way, 80 miles round trip for the day. And I called him and said, nothing doing. The car is messed up. The district manager had nerve enough to tell me that I need to get this resolved. I said I would have had it resolved had you would have coughed up the mileage check. I could have bought another car. And then I was informed, how dare I speak to her in that manner? And I says, how dare you withhold my money? At the end of the day, there was a slight dispute, and I basically laid down the law and said, well, here's the deal. I'm not doing another day of anything until I get my money. Interestingly enough, Monday came, and that happened on I think a Thursday or Friday. Monday came, and all of a sudden I ended up with a couple $1,000s in my bank account. But the bad part was they still owe me a couple thousand more. So I ultimately ended up parting, and that's how I found the mulch place. However, before the mulch place hired me, I had literally 91 applications out.
When was this? What year was this?
This was earlier this year. This was between February and early March.
91
but I had been applying
applications.
since January. I was looking since January to get out of that filling station company.
So,
And I had 91 applications out before the mulch place, and I sat down and worked out.
Before we get into the mulch place, the convenience store, were there any other employees there that were having similar issues with their mileage checks that you're aware of?
That I don't know, because I was the only one in the building.
I got you. Okay. And then
That basically, they sent me to one store to fill in to open up a second shift. I got that going. They brought somebody else in, and then they ended up, I don't know what they did about third shift, but then they decided to move me in another direction. They offered me a general manager's position. I went to take it, and then I found out the second or third day I was there that the district manager had already given it to someone else, even though that's why I was standing in the building.
that's crazy.
And yeah, I was not a happy camper.
Now the mulch, before you accepted the offer at the mulch place, you said you had 91 applications out.
Yes, sir.
Of these 91, if you just roundabout number or percentage, how many of these applications that you submitted were for places that claimed that they were hiring?
Every single one of them. It was on Indeed.com.
So they're stating that they're hiring, they're looking for employees, yet you're filling out multiple applications, several applications. Any commonalities with the reason why you didn't? Did you get interviews?
No, there was only two places that interviewed me and one who hired me. There was a grocery store outfit in Columbus. What they are is they're a franchise holder of IGA stores. And so I went and interviewed with them. Then I never heard anything. And then a couple days later, actually it was on the same day, I went to the interview with the mulch place. The mulch place took literally a week to get back to me, but ultimately I was hired.
91 applications, 2 interviews. Over, I mean, this is, and we see it all the time. There's signs out, there's statements made that no one wants to work. Meanwhile, you're trying and they're not even responding.
Correct. Well, you see, I ran into this last decade. I remember that the seeds of all of this nobody wants to work business was planted last decade. And I remember, seems like every other video out there on, social media in general, not just, this platform, was all about how, we drive around, we see all these help wanted signs and everybody's lazy and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, yeah, no, that ain't the case. They're being paid to hang up the damn things. Pardon my language. Basically, the first instance that I saw of this was a hardware store in my town. And at the time, it was an independently owned hardware store. And it was August, and they run a big ad talking about, oh, well, we're hiring, you know. And I'm like, huh, that's a little odd. Because normally this time of the year, they're laying some people off as their, per se, outdoor lawnmower section and all that stuff kind of dwindles, you know, this time of the year. This is actually the time they used to lay people off.
And you're up in the
And I'm like,
Midwest.
yeah, I'm up here in Ohio,
Okay.
central Ohio, actually. And so I don't know. I go down, throw in an application, whatever, and they're all talking about, well, you know, okay, so the manager, you can talk to her Saturday. I call and it's, well, she's on vacation. I call back, you know, the following week, nothing. About the fourth time, I finally get a hold of the manager. By this time, it's, you know, 2-3 weeks later, in the middle of September, and, well, no, we're not hiring. Yeah. And I didn't even really notice much of a staff change down there. There might have been, I think, maybe one person they hired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, what's going on here? Because, you know, first off, that is a weird time of the year for that bunch to hire or to even claim that they want somebody. And then, I don't know, they basically kind of keep dodging me, and then finally, oh, well, we're not hiring anyone. Meanwhile, I don't really notice that the staff ever changed.
So I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to, get your opinion. You seem to be pretty well in tune with what's going on, especially in your area. Where do you see the job market going in the next 6 to 12 months?
Down the tubes. The reason I say this is simply because, so in conjunction with the hardware store thing, once I looked into that, basically what I found out was the government was paying these people to hang up help wanted signs through the work opportunity tax credit. I don't know if you ever heard of this. But basically how that works is they only have to work somebody for 120 hours. They collect a 25% tax break. And there's no limits on how many people in a day, a week, a month, or a year that they can hire and go through. And so what happens is they've opened up a revolving door. They've hired people in. They throw them right back out. Most companies will stamp them unhireable. Then they're forced to go to the next town. Here's the deal. All the companies in about every town's running out of people. So I don't really look for this to pick back up. The other thing is the sales are in the toilet. You have an income deficiency across the population. You don't make sales if you don't have money floating around in the public. So, and then that's only going to get worse. I don't really see to where it's going to get any better. And then, of course, it's not just regular everyday jobs. We're seeing this in even, per se, what they always wanted to call the professional level, you know. I know management is being degraded, or, well, shall I say, devalued. In a lot of cases, what they're doing is a lot of store managers would make, say, $60,000 a year. Well, nowadays, when a lot of companies go to hire a manager in, they tell them that you can earn up to $60,000 a year. What that means is that your base pay is now $50,000. Then they've taken $10,000. They've tied it up in a bunch of silly metrics and quotas that you'll never meet. And it's a way to pay you $10,000 less. If you get any of it at all, you might see $2,000 to $3,000, and that's it. It's a complete ripoff. They're basically, what they're doing is they're cutting wages of everyone.
Now, do they witness, do they realize, do you think that they see the error of their ways and how this is going to potentially negatively impact their business from a consumer level? Or is there some other government program out there that they're banking on where they don't necessarily need to have these sales like they once were?
Well, okay, so I think some companies have at least pretended to acknowledge the error of their ways. I say that because some of the folks in suits, they don't like to admit when they make mistakes. But what they will do is find a fall guy and then pretend to correct the problem. Um, so um, I will say that some of them have managed to raise the wages in some cases, but there's usually strings attached. If you want to make any real money, you're going to have to do 5 jobs at a time, and you're possibly going to have to live there. Those are your options, if not both. The other situation is that if they do pay you, you may not even get very many hours. So this is the thing: is everybody's been running around for 6 years about the proverbial $15 an hour down at the fast food.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these folks don't get any more than 13 to 20 hours a week, and shift managers might get 25 hours a week. They could see 30, 32 if somebody calls off. So they're not really any further ahead than they were, say, 8 years ago. It's basically a joke. As far as what programs are out there, well, I did hear some time ago that there was supposed to be some reworking of the work opportunity tax credit. It was merely mentioned, and then I'd never heard any more. So I don't know, excuse me, if they're plotting to expand that. It wouldn't surprise me.
Do
But
you
I will say that, oh, go ahead.
well, no, go ahead, finish your thought.
Okay. Um, I will say when it comes to companies, big and small, that sells food and or foodstuffs, um, one of the big prop up slash bailouts for them has actually been food stamps. And the thing is no matter what side of the food stamps themselves you're on, I will say that, well, and it started last decade, that politicians, a bunch of other folks, whatever, went around and basically told everybody to scorn the person with a food stamp card. And unfortunately, this does seem to be the knowledge of these folks. Even people in management of a lot of these stores, I've heard them snicker about these people. And I'm sitting there going, you realize that that's probably where over 50% of your paycheck comes from, bud? Effectively meaning you're on it by association. That all these companies are literally in hot pursuit of that money. And they have been for well over a decade. This is exactly why the government expanded that program. They weren't going to write them a bailout bill like they did the car companies and the banks. That would have looked too obvious that there was a bigger economic problem than what they care to tell everyone. So no, they hit it with an existing program. They've done the same thing with rent. That's why rent's insane. Honestly, most of the inflation that's caused is simply by these programs, but it's not necessarily the existence of the program. It's because the stores are in hot pursuit, so they raise prices to collect even more of it, is what they're doing. So I will say that that is a program that I don't doubt will be expanded.
See, that's
I
what
really don't know the time frame on that.
and that was the question I was going to ask you was, do you anticipate these businesses banking on some form of bailout? And
Yeah.
ultimately, the answer is somewhat of a yes, by way of some program versus just getting
Yeah.
a check written to them.
Yeah, basically it's going to be a long-running program, which they've already had, and there again, that would be the food stamp program. So, I think they're going to continue to use that. I think that they are going to continue to, expand that, and I don't know. It may not happen in 6 months, but somewhere within the next 2 years, I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, if that were actually to be true, it wouldn't actually help the situation as far as the employment situation, because these companies, these employers, they would continue to try to pay as little as possible, make people do as much as possible, and just do as little as they can to get as much as they can out of this food stamp program.
Well, yeah, and that's basically been a thing too. As I think part of what's driven down wages is, I think big boys sit there and go, well, hey, wait a minute. Why should we pay for what they could go apply for? I think that that's kind of their mentality. And basically what that means is, they really are looking for a pass. They're looking for a handout. This is the deal, is every time the regular Joe employee, complains that, I'm not, making what I believe I ought to be making, or, hey, can I get a raise? Then they want to come back with this, oh, you guys are just entitled and all this. No, I think really the turds and suits are the entitled ones. I think they're the ones that's, oh, I need a government handout for this. Oh, hey, governor, can you give me a big tax break or something? And they're the ones that, like I said, well, just let welfare pay for these people. We'll get them in here. We'll pay them just the bare legal amount. We'll make them, do at least double the work. And then away we go. They don't care.
What do you think the play is for the businesses and the companies and corporations that don't have the food stamp, EBT, SNAP, government food assistance program leg to stand on? What are they going to do?
Well, and that's a very good question, because I've been watching that play out for well over a decade. And a lot of their plan so far seems to be to borrow money, buy their own shares, inflate their stock, take on more debt, and do the same, and continuously run the company in the ground. It's basically what Sears did. Penny's is on par with this. Kohl's and Macy's ain't far behind. I don't know. It's kind of like they're just out to, I guess, use the company as a credit card until it collapses. And of course, the executives don't care. They've got theirs. They're still going to get their bonus. They don't, profits could drop 83% tomorrow, and these guys are still going to make their bonus. They don't care.
Yeah, they, and then, that's how we get introduced to these meme stocks of stock values of companies that are obviously not worth what people are willing to pay for them, but even those get propped up and inflated by traders, options traders. So, but at the same time, what you just described is almost similar to how our government handles the nation's finances on credit, with no means or any real intentions of being able to pay it back.
Well, yeah, it's like, I see it in comment sections everywhere all the time. Everybody's, well, us taxpayers and this and that. And it's like, hey, I do agree that, these punks are dancing upon our paychecks. They are stealing from us. But at the same time, your tax dollars aren't really paying for anything. If it was, we wouldn't have the need to borrow anything, and we would not have debts and deficits. I don't know, I think it was back around 98 sometime. I can't remember what the publication was, but I remember there was an article about how our tax dollars don't even cover the cost of the IRS. Now, that's been what, about 24 years ago, something like that?
Well,
I mean,
it's a good thing we just added 87,000
what exactly
more.
is our tax dollars supposed to be paying for today?
I mean,
take it, but I think it goes into the abyss of the unknown, because they're printing more than we'll ever be able to pay.
well, I mean, you got to think though. I mean, if anybody were to audit anything, it'd be the IRS. So who's auditing the IRS?
Exactly.
Oh boy, Matt, I appreciate it. Thank you for working with me on the time here. And honestly, I would say right now, I'd like to have further conversations with you if that's okay in the future.
Yes, sir.
And I will try. Well, thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that. I know some of it may have been a little bit of tough to hear, but honestly, this is what's going on out there in the world. We can't ignore it. We got to understand that this is what's going on, and we have to do things to make changes and prepare ourselves and our families to not become more of a victim than necessary at the hands and as a result of these large companies and these corporations, and even some of these smaller companies, these independently owned smaller operations, just taking advantage of the workforce, which ultimately is can potentially have a huge negative impact on the overall economy and their ability to continue on making sales, earning revenue and profits. But we're going to have to see what happens when we reach that crossroad, which may be pretty soon, sooner than most would really expect, with the direction that our economy and our government is going as far as managing and mitigating these situations. And what they're showing us is their top priority, which to me has nothing to do with the well-being of the American people, especially those who are down in the trenches, barely getting by, trying to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck at and or below minimum wage. But again, if any of you guys are interested, go ahead. My email's in the description. Send me an email if you're interested in talking about sharing your story and your experiences and spreading more of the truth of what's actually going on out there in the labor market, in the job market, what we can expect from this economy, the effects and impacts of inflation that you're seeing personally and in business. And let's try to get more of these stories and the truth out to the people that need it most to help them better prepare. Matt was compensated for his time, and I will offer that and I will extend that to anyone else who's interested in participating. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. Hit that like button. I want to see the comments below. Even if it's just great job, thumbs up, or Kevin, we didn't really feel that. Please don't do that again. Either way, valuable, constructive criticism and feedback is appreciated. You guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you soon.